of all, I would like to talk about two mistakes that I hear from people who try to apply journaling to language learning, but then end up quitting it. Why it happens? People take it too literally. When I hear that people say, okay, I have to explain everything I did, and for example, maybe they skip some days, so they say, oh, but I have to then explain all the things that happened between today and 2 months ago, of course it becomes overwhelming. I mean, the key to a change like the one that we have to undergo when we learn a language is that it must remain pleasurable. If you don't enjoy it, if you feel overwhelmed, if you feel some sort of disgust when you think about journaling, it means, no, we have to change the path, okay? So, first of all, don't take it too literally. Journaling is a tool. The idea is that it has to be a tool to allow you to practice the language a little bit on a daily basis, or anyway, quite frequently, and in a lighter way than what you would do, for example, in a traditional class setting. It's a tool. We have to think about what we want to achieve through the tool, not that we have to journal for the sake of journal. If we have some backlog, we have to say absolutely everything because otherwise it doesn't count. No, who cares? Don't feel overwhelmed. Every day is day one. Did you skip, I don't know, how many days? It's done. I mean, there is nothing we can do about it. Let's focus on today. Remember, every day is day one. Also, one of my favorite idioms in French, fait, c'est mieux que parfait. Done is better than perfect. Please think about it. And as a third principle, we can add also that journaling is a tool. It's not the objective per se. The second side of taking journaling too literally is exactly using it only to tell about what happens during your day. And I've had several people coming and saying, oh, but my days are more or less the same, so I'm not actually learning new words. Through a regular weekly practice like this, you're going to be able to add some new notions, for example, from the point of view of the grammar or new vocabulary in a very physiological way, because you're only talking about things that matter to you. And of course, you're not writing an essay. We are not here to write a paper. I mean, the idea is to write a handful of sentences. Nope, we don't need to write exactly only about what happens today. And further in the videos, I'm exactly going to talk about the 3 ways we can use journaling. You want to say a lot, but if you're not capable of stopping yourself, and so of course you're going to feel disgusted when thinking about it, just put a timer. We don't need to do it every single day. 3 to 4 times a week is already way more than someone who gets one shot of language learning during 1 class per week and then forgets about the language throughout the rest of the week. Be aware of that. Whatever is done, is done. Let's not focus on the outcome, because the point is not the single outcome, is the process. I mean, is all the things that you are going to write, all the time, all the minutes that your mind is going to be engaged with the language that you're learning. This is what counts on a medium long term. What you write on 1 page is irrelevant. And if you're too tired and you just manage to write 3 random words, that's fine. Fait, c'est mieux que parfait. And every day is day one. Regarding the 3 journaling style, you can definitely write what happens during the day. This is actually interesting. For example, if you work office, I don't know, you work in English, but your environment is actually in another language, and so you would like to be able to speak also the language of your colleagues, because maybe the coffee breaks are not in English, or are in Dutch, in French, in Italian, whatever. This is exactly a moment where you can help yourself build the vocabulary, because you're going to speak about what happened during the day, and you are going to little by little learn the vocabulary to speak about your job. It's a tool, it's not the objective. So the idea is that you have a moment where you can make space for your brain to digest and memorize these new words, and where also yourself, you can, for example, experiment a little bit with these words, find out how to call a specific procedure, I don't know. The second style, let's say, can be reflective journaling. In reflective journaling, you're focusing on your thoughts. And so instead of writing about what happened, you're writing about your reflections. And this is very good to increase your vocabulary. The idea is always, let's talk about what matters to us, especially if you're already at an intermediate/advanced level. It's a moment where you can make space to go beyond what you already know. Because the problem of people at a certain level is that they tend to use always the same words, and this happens to me as well, because the point is that when we have to speak, we are usually under pressure. If we are under pressure, our brain thinks, okay, we have to get the message through in the most certain way possible without having misunderstanding and so on. So of course we are much more confident about using the words that we already been using for ages, and so let's stick to that. Why risking? There is no point in risking exactly a mistake, a misunderstanding, or being unclear, getting questions about what we meant and so on. But we get stuck. We need to make space to experiment, to look for words, to look for expressions, to think about what we would actually want to say in our own mother tongue. That's usually way more precise than the message we're actually conveying in the language we are learning. This is your chance. Don't spoil it. The third point is exactly a further side of the idea of seeing journaling as a tool. In this kind of journaling, you're just journaling about your language practice. It means that we are not really journaling in the traditional sense, but we are writing about what we've done to learn our target language. You use it as a training tool. You don't focus on your day or on your thoughts, but you're actually training yourself to explain what you've done to learn something new in the language you're learning. Do you know that you're going to give a presentation in a few weeks or something like that? You use journaling just to work on your presentation, but this way it can be interesting because you can see the progress. It makes you feel that you're actually accomplishing something, and you can see, of course, the progress and the result, provided that you can actually start working on something with some advance. If it's not a presentation, it can also be like a listening exercise or a little chat that you've had. And for example, you thought, okay, I made a certain mistake. I try to speak about this mistake so that it becomes a sort of meta-reflection or meta-correction. I mean, by speaking about something that you've noticed, you're actually going to first correct yourself, correct your thoughts in your mind, and you're going to make it stick because you have a moment where you can concentrate and actually absorb once forever, probably, the right version of what you were supposed to say. How to do it effectively? Of course, what we don't want is that we just upload a bunch of stuff on an LLM and we get the translation, then we copy it out by hand. If it is absolutely impossible for us to do something else, this is better than nothing, because copying out by hand still, our brain is still doing something, but it's better, it's not so effective to actually start building sentences on your own. This is not really what we want. We want something more. Let's be a little bit more ambitious. So my recommendation is, when you're writing and there is a word you don't know, look up for the word individually and then try to apply it yourself in the sentence. And if you don't know, who cares? Just leave it as it is. For example, there is a verb and you don't know how to conjugate it, just leave it like that. For example, you're learning a language where there are cases, like, German. You don't know the ending. Who cares? Throw something and let's see what sticks. Or otherwise, just leave it like that, and you will learn later by correcting yourself. So don't get stuck. Once you're done with writing, that's the moment where you can use AI. Exactly, because unfortunately we need to correct something. I strongly recommend to use Claude, or text is better. And you can copy it on the app or the program or whatever you're going to use, or you can actually dictate it as well, which means that you're going to make some speaking practice, let's say, or at least reading out loud practice, which is definitely better than nothing. Especially in this case, I strongly recommend to dictate through ChatGPT and then copy the result and paste it on Claude. Let's pay attention to the prompt that we're going to give it to the LLM. The point is not just asking to correct, but asking to correct the grammar. Why? They're actually going to stick to what we said, and especially we want that our vocabulary choice remains unchanged as much as possible. The kind of modifications in the word choice are going to be limited to what is actually wrong, because otherwise, if you don't specify it, there is a very high chance that you're going to get a result that is completely different just because it sounds more natural. But we don't really care about it. Unfortunately, that's too much for us at this point. We've written a lot and we want only a selection of mistakes. We just say, correct the 3 most important mistakes. And then once we get the results, we literally correct what we've written with different colors, because this way it helps us make things stick. Finally, we can go, let's say, from the micro to the macro. We have a micro mistake, but we don't know, for example, the rule. What's the logic behind it? Why should we say like this instead of like that, and so on? That's the moment where we can actually learn the grammar. The grammar is always a tool, once again. The objective is not learning grammar, just having grammar, just like a map that tells us what's the right route to convey our message in a way that is comprehensible and effective. So that's all for today. The best is actually to mix, for example, these 3 journaling styles according to what matters to you, according to your mood, or according to your needs. And if you need a further nudge, you can actually join my 4-month journaling challenge with a special offer in the description. Thanks a lot for watching. Talk to you soon.